Hey everyone, today we're having a look at some underrated killer perks, which there are quite a few of. So today we're just going to go through and try and highlight the ones I think deserve some attention. Let's get into it. Coming in at number 10 we have Hex Retribution. This is a totem protection perk partly, but more so an information perk that requires survivors to break a hex totem, where it will then activate and reveal all survivors for 10 seconds. It will also give survivors who break dull totems the oblivious effect for 45 seconds. So it's more of a punishment after the fact than before, which is probably why it's not used so much. However, it is well worth using because at the end of the day, if survivors have found your other hexes, they will cleanse them. If you spend too much time defending it, they'll just get all the gens done. There's really not an extensive benefit to guarding totems to ridiculous extents if they know where they are. Retribution helps out and punishes them after they cleanse, which in my eyes makes it underrated and a worthwhile alternative to perks like Thrill of the Hunt. Coulrophobia is in our number 9 spot and is a very underrated anti-healing perk, especially effective on indoor maps where more than likely it will be harder to escape a killer's terror radius. I think why this perk is underrated is that people will usually just write it off and say, well, why would I not just use Thanatophobia or Sloppy Butcher? Those perks are much easier and will probably do more, right? Yeah, maybe. But Coulrophobia reduces healing speeds by a pretty huge 50% when in the killer's terror radius. That's a lot. That makes it a lot slower. And hey, you can then combine this with Sloppy and Thana and then Distressing for extra terror radius range, and you basically have an impossible to beat anti-heal build, which forces survivors to stay injured. So yeah, it's a pretty good perk. Agitation is our number 8, and a super straightforward perk which makes your carry speeds 18% faster and also extends your terror radius by 12 meters when carrying someone. This perk is amazing for securing basement hooks or countering survivors who will play very altruistically and try and body block or sabotage hooks. It's well worth to bring this. It can save you a lot of bother. It's also great for repositioning. If you're a trap character, this perk can help you get the hook into an area much more preferable to you. Super simple, but very useful. Hex the Third Seal is in our 7th spot, and a perk that will apply a permanent blindness effect to survivors after you have hit them with a basic attack. Sounds super basic, right? Why bring a totem that just gives them blindness? That isn't that great. Well, survivors will often always have aura perks, so it counters those, meaning you won't be seen if someone has dark sense, for example. It can also make it a very difficult job for survivors to figure out where someone has been hooked, because the hook won't highlight as the auras are blocked. So a team not on comms especially will suffer from this. They may have a hooked teammate but not even realise because they rely on their auras as their main source of information surrounding hook saves. There's plenty of other uses, but that's a particularly effective one. Shadowborn is in our 6th spot, and it's a very simple yet helpful perk, especially on characters like Huntress, Nurse, or anyone fast moving or has a long ranged ability. Shadowborn increases your FOV, or field of view, by a 9% degree. This basically just means that you can see more. It zooms the camera out from your perspective and will give you a slight extra edge, which will allow you to locate survivors much more efficiently than you would have done prior. This perk is great for catching those survivors who would usually sneak away in your peripheral view. With this perk you have a much greater chance of catching them with that slight extra percentage to your view. It's also a passively activated perk. It's just there, no requirements, it just does its job. Pretty underrated and well worth using. Number 5 is Knockout, a perk very recently buffed to make cruel speeds heavily reduced after just being downed, and also blocking aura reads on downed survivors out of a 16 meter range, meaning you have to get close to see the down guy if you're another survivor. This perk will also make slugging a lot easier and also create a more vital need for survivors to leave where they are and properly locate their downed teammates. It's also great for the endgame when downing multiple survivors at once. That initial reduced crawl speed will make it harder for them to get close to crawling away and getting saved. This perk also allows you to keep everyone compacted. Solid perk. Tinkerer is our number 4 and activates when a gen hits 70% completion. It will then highlight this gen with a bubble and give you the undetectable effect, allowing you to sneak up on survivors and down them easily. This perk is very good in combination with perks like Ruin, which can allow you to instantly regress after survivors let go of the generator. You can use this perk as a means to move around silently. Especially if you keep regressing gens, this will repeatedly proc, and you'll get many uses out of it. You get a whole 16 seconds of undetectable, which isn't something you should think badly of. That's a lot of time. Good perk. Use it. Fire Up is on our 3rd spot. It activates every time a generator completes, where it will award you with a token. Each token gives you a 4% stackable increase to picking up, dropping, Paladin gen breaking, and vaulting. After you have achieved these tokens, there is no way to lose them. This perk is really good, and people do not use it nearly enough. The standout I think for this perk is Vault Speeds. That extra speed late game with say a 16% bonus makes loops like Shack so much easier to handle, and it'll put a lot of pressure on the survivor to not make a single mistake. Gen kicking speeds are great too. It practically turns into brutal strength. Great for holding 3 gens. Finally, the pickup is also super nice. It can just give you that extra edge necessary, that extra push that can allow you to turn the tides on the game. And hey, it only gets better. Despite the gens being done, gens popping becomes a slightly less punishing factor with this perk on. Number 2 is going to be Surge, a very solid perk that will activate upon downing a survivor, where it will then make any gens in a 32 meter range explode. This is a perk used for both anti-gen reasons and also information of what gens are being done around you, and therefore where survivors are close by. This will help considerably in cutting down wasted time, as you won't have to kick gens. It also works a bit like a gen-based Infectious Fright, because you can use nearby gens as reference to then continue snowballing. It's pretty effective, the only drawback being a 40-second cooldown, which is largely not too bad. Overall, this perk is very solid, and I would also say very underrated. Remember Me is in our number 1 spot, and probably a controversial pick, but hey, I like to pick things that other people might not. So this is my number 1 underrated perk. Remember Me is a perk that requires tokens, which you gain by hitting the obsession a total of 4 times, each time giving you a stackable increase to the time it takes to open the exit gates. Each token equates to 4 seconds, so if you get 4 hits, which you probably will, this will then make the exit gates a total of 36 seconds to be opened, with Remember Me adding 16 onto the base of 20. This makes far apart exit gate games winnable, and in general means you have a much better chance to stop survivors from leaving. And hey, it's not anywhere near as bad as NOED, yet it can often have greater and more damaging effects than NOED to the survivor side. It's a great perk, totally underused, and our number 1. Alright, that's gonna be it. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.